Hey everyone, I want to spend a little bit more time on this national treasure hunt that's happening. It's based upon this book that was published, There's Treasure Inside, a treasure hunt by John Collins Black. And I want to talk today about something specific. Remember, by the way, keep in mind that my channel is focused largely upon informal conversations around a digital cup of coffee about faith, life, learning, and leadership in contemporary life and in the world. And especially learning beyond sort of formal schooling is what I spend a lot of time on this channel. And this concept of a treasure hunt and alternate reality gaming and those sorts of things are really intriguing. But I'm going to zoom in on this treasure hunt very specifically. And for those of you who are not aware of the treasure hunt, you might need to go watch a couple of other videos first and then come back to this one so you have any idea what I'm talking about. Because I want to talk about specifically the shovel and the pick. And here's what I mean. If you look at the book, you'll look at that little image here. You will see a shovel and a pick that pops up. And then if I go inside the book, on the front, the title here, you'll see the shovel and the pick pop up. And if I go to the back of the book, again, one of the very last pages, after everything else, after all of the acknowledgments, you will see the shovel and the pick. So I did a full kind of psychological profile in a prior video of John Collins Black to describe how I think he thinks, as best as I can tell from his writing and from the interviews. And then I talked about, in that other video, I talked about what does that psychological profile tell us about how he likely creates clues. And then third, I talked about how that might actually lead us to understand how he thinks about choosing specific locations for the treasure. But for this video, I'm just going to focus on that shovel and pick. And I'm going to play around with it a little bit, play around with the kind of layered meanings and storytelling that I think he gets into as a musician and as a person who likes poetry and literature and travel and the different things that he talks about in his book and that you can learn about him online. And so I'm going to focus in the book. If you in one of the chapters, there is a story about the gold rush. So let me just say this before I even get into it. I am organized. I have a little outline in front of me here, but I will say this: I do not think that shovel and pick is about physically digging. Obviously, that we know that the treasures are not actually underground. In the book, he discloses, he states that these are treasures that are above ground, and he has some specific rules. So just to play around with treasure hunt design. Part of why I'm talking about this is because I'm intrigued by treasure hunt design and how we might actually be able to use some of these principles to design engaging experiences and learning experiences and other things like that for ourselves and for one another. So I will say this, though. That symbol is intentional, and it's included throughout the book in at least 3 places. It's included in multiple places, and there is a story that's grounded to that image. So let me talk a little bit about it. I will say this is not just about digging. I'm pretty confident about that. And the question is, what is the meaning that he's attaching to the shovel and the pick? And I don't presume to know the mind of John Collins Black that much, and I don't want to presume his motives. But I will say that there's a layered storytelling that is very clear, and that images and stories and other things layer on top of one another to create a kind of message and meaning. And so I think it would be almost unreasonable to disregard this visual symbol that's been intentionally included. So I want to talk today about one of the characters who's highlighted in the book. And in the first 23 chapters, almost every chapter highlights a kind of modern mythology, a contemporary character who embodies that modern mythology. I will do a whole nother video on John Collins Black and mythology to get into this a little bit more. But I'll just say that much for this video, that there's this guy named Sam Brannan. So he was the most profitable man of the gold rush. And John Collins Black tells the story of him. He dedicates a few sentences to Sam Brannan, and I'm going to take you into that a little bit more. So who was he? He was an entrepreneur. He was a Mormon elder, and he was an early Californian settler. but he was not obsessed personally with seeking gold in the gold rush. Instead, he approached it a bit differently. In 1848, he was the first to publicly proclaim gold discovery in California, so some sources claim. And instead of mining, he bought up all of the mining tools in the region, and he set up a business model that led him to be, again, the person who obtained the most wealth through the gold rush. So he famously ran through the streets shouting, "Gold, gold from the American River." And his store made over $150,000 in 1 year, which is equivalent to millions of dollars today. And this is where we get in if you take business classes or other things like this, you may have heard about this idea. During a gold rush, sell picks and shovels, right? And that business principle is when you have a gold rush, you sell picks and shovels. You find out what people really want and what they're seeking. They're seeking gold. So what can you do to help them achieve their aim? Well, you can give them the kinds of tools that they're going to need to go on that gold rush journey. And that's exactly what he did. And that's actually the business model that's being used quite successfully to this day in businesses all over the country and all around the world. So what does this have to do with the treasure hunt? And I'm not going to presume too much about John Collins Black's motive or how much of this he meant. I have no doubt, very little doubt, that he understood the pick and the shovel relates to Brannon, and I have very little doubt that there wasn't some kind of intentionality and some storytelling to this. Now, what he meant by it and what he wanted to achieve, I don't know. But let me just say this. One of the things I pointed out in my prior video is that John Collins Black purchased a number of treasures to put into these 5 treasure boxes that are hidden around the country. And we're talking about maybe a few $1 million. And one of the things that I speculated on in a prior video is that I suspect that he will make more money on the books that he sells and the other kinds of things surrounding this than the amount of money that was spent on the treasures that go into these boxes. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe he has surprises, and maybe there's a lot more than just the $3 million in the treasure boxes. Or maybe he's planning to take the revenue that's been generated from these books and to use it for some kind of great charity, or maybe it's an extra prize beyond what's in the boxes. I mean, he doesn't state that explicitly anywhere. I'm completely speculating. So I'm just noting that to say that when I talk about this, I'm not saying that this is just a money grab by John Collins Black and it's purely a financial strategy, a business model for him to make a whole lot of money. My understanding is that he seems to be doing fine financially, and I don't know how much money making is a part of his motive or not. I get a sense from interviews and the like that he doesn't indicate that is a big motive. So I'm not attributing a motive that he's just really doing this to make a lot of money. And even if he is, the people who find the treasures are going to get a great benefit. And I will say that there is a financial ecosystem that's emerging around this treasure hunt. Not only has John Collins Black written his book and sold it, but there are other treasure hunters who have been creating books and selling their solves to other people. And so they're making money off of the treasure hunt. And it's very possible, say one of the treasure boxes has a couple $100,000 of treasure. If you put together enough resources that are solves for that treasure box, you could potentially make more money selling the metaphorical pick and shovel than actually finding the treasure for yourself. It's a possibility. And I have a small YouTube channel here. It's not like I'm going to generate a lot of money from these videos, but it is possible that there could be content creators that can leverage the treasure hunt in such a way that they generate a reasonable amount of money for themselves, maybe as much as they'd find in a single treasure over time, depending upon how long the treasure hunt goes. I'm not sure, but I'm just acknowledging this. Okay, so why does John Collins Black include this character from the Gold Rush in his book? He doesn't state it explicitly. Brannon appears alongside themes of decision making and making good choices in the Gold Rush. His story contrasts gold fever with what you might call strategic positioning. So people who are just rushing after the gold themselves. Um, he could be asking questions like, are you chasing gold blindly or thoughtfully or building something lasting? Keep in mind that I do believe that for John Collins Black, he's hoping that the most significant treasure, the treasure that will be experienced by the most people, since only a handful of people will actually get the treasure boxes, is these other kinds of metaphorical treasures of the experiences they have, the aha moments, the journeys, the memories that they create with friends and family while going on these trips and other things like that. I really do believe it. Which, by the way, again, there's an economic element. Think about the amount of travel expenses that are incurred, overnight stays, food people are buying on the road. All of that is part of the ecosystem that's being created. I would contend that there have probably been 5, 10, 15, $20 million of revenue generated for different people as part of this treasure hunt already, and that will continue to grow quite significantly. I would not be surprised if by the end of this treasure hunt, we're not talking about something that has created a kind of miniature economy generating $100 million of sales to different products and again, travel costs and hotel stays and other things like that. The amount of time that people are spending on different aspects of the treasure hunt. So um, the other thing I put down here is the meta player. So so in meta analysis, when we're thinking about thinking, that's you think about your thinking process. A meta player is a person who's playing and doing something with the players of the game. And we're already seeing that emerge. In fact, you could argue that this video makes me a sort of meta player in the game. It's a person who's equipping others or engaging others. It's actually getting involved in the pick and the shovel aspect of resourcing the players of the game and not just going right after the goal directly. And that's just kind of an intriguing aspect of this whole thing. It could possibly be a challenge to the reader if he is thinking about this in a very intentional way. I don't know if he's consciously thinking about this or if it's just sort of layered meaning that comes out of his personality when he's writing. But how are you engaging this hunt? Are you mining? Are you supplying? Are you distracting? Are you observing? What role are you playing in the treasure hunt? Because there are more roles in this game than just treasure creator and treasure hunter. There's an entire community that's being created, and there are different roles that people can choose to play at different times. In fact, the vast majority of people in this treasure hunt are not actually going out and looking for treasure. They're talking about the treasure with other people. They're sharing their ideas. I actually had a potential possible location for one of the treasures that I just went on a Facebook group and posted the whole thing because it's at an elevation that my body just doesn't handle very well anymore as I'm aging a little bit, and I'd need a few days to get acclimated and adjusted, and I knew I couldn't take that time off of work and didn't really have an interest in doing it. So I just put all of my notes in there for someone else to try out. And I think actually at the time of this video, there's supposed to be a couple of people who are out there looking around. We'll see if they find something. Maybe not. I say they have a 20% chance, and 20% is actually pretty good chance in game theory. Maybe I'll do a video on game theory in the future too. So the symbolism again of the pick and the shovel. On the cover, it evokes the gold rush, effort, tools, but also an invitation to think deeply about what role you're going to play. Again, not a literal digging in the tool. And it could have some other meanings too. So the application to the hunt, I would say this: Brannon made millions of dollars in modern day by thinking differently than the other treasure hunters. And so maybe, just maybe, the real treasure is doing the same. Maybe John Collins Black thought of that intentionally. Maybe he didn't. He created the game and the system, and games take on a life of their own. So it's not just, it's like a storyteller. You tell a story, other people are going to kind of create different meanings and attach different meanings, even though some of those meanings may not be true. They may not be accurate, and they may not represent the intent of the author. But when you start to design a game or you tell a story, it begins to take on a life of its own over time, and people are going to use it and repurpose it and hack it. They're going to hack the game into different kinds of purposes. And I do think, from what I can tell about John Collins Black, I don't know how much he strategically designed it that way, how much he sort of began to realize it over time as he was creating this. I'm not sure. But regardless, it is part of the treasure hunt now. It is part of the game. And one of the questions are not just, how do I find the treasure? But the question is, what role do I want to play in the treasure hunt? What is the character that I'm going to play in this story that's being created, in this game that's being played? And again, if Brannon was the most successful person financially in the treasure hunt, and he never even searched for gold, think about this game from that lens. That maybe thinking differently about the role that you play in the game could actually lead to a whole new, different set of treasures. It's a fascinating kind of layer on this storytelling, and I'm not sure how deeply John Collins Black thought about this or not, but it's there. It's part of the story, and I invite you to join me in this exploration of it.